Thanks, David. And now welcome Shaun Walton. Shaun is a wildfire chair in the National Fire Chief Council in the UK, group manager in Lancashire Fire and Rescue Service, and he has served during 28 years in the UK Fire and Rescue Service.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to talk about a number of fires that we've had in the UK. In particular, I'll be speaking about two fires in particular that was in the northwest of England on Winter Hill. You can see there on the fire that's in place, a big transmitter to the top right-hand screen. It's called Winter Hill because that's the main transmitter for the northwest of England, so millions of people get BBC and other channels via that. So critical national infrastructure was at risk on this wildfire. You can see the length of the flanks there. This fire that you're seeing now was the one that me and a colleague attended as a wildfire attack advisor. And although it's in my own service, my own fire and rescue service, we attended it after being in another fire over in Saddleworth. And you can see the fire there is, it's not as big as it's going to get because there was another fire 2 days later in the same geographical location that spread up towards the mast from the other side. I've got some footage that I can show you of that. This is now showing the fire that came from the other side of the hill and spread towards the initial fire that you previously saw. As you can see, there's a number of forestation areas on this side, and dotted throughout it on the flanks, there's also properties, residential properties. Previously, all these people thought they were safe from wildfire. If you look at some of the later footage on it, this was in June this year, and the landscape is very, very green. So it's burning not just grasses that are dying off and forestation, but also quite new grass and moorland heather as well. And you can just see in the back here, that's where the transmitters are. So all this fire and smoke is passing directly over a hill to where we've got people working on the other side, and it was quite unexpected that this was going to travel the way that it did for us. The fire lasted for 41 days. So for 41 days, we were deployed day and night. In our fire service, we have around about 59 fire engines, and at its peak, we put 32 fire engines on the moors. And that leaves us then, when we're changing over, some real decisions about how we manage our day-to-day business, because we do building fires, road traffic collisions, chemical incidents. We don't have a dedicated wildfire service. We cover everything within Lancashire. So quite a few challenges. And you can see there how green it is. And eventually all that passes right up and reaches the mast, on the mast road that passes by it. There was also an issue with the smoke plume. That plume, 20 minutes away by car, is Manchester city centre. And on the other direction, you've got Preston city centre. And the wind was changing every 4 hours from an easterly to a westerly. And that plume, again, it was interesting what David was saying. It caused many problems for people with chest conditions, respiratory disorders. So it was always on our mind trying to manage those smoke plumes. And they were very, very difficult. Obviously, in the morning, for 41 days, depending where the wind was blowing, people were getting really anxious that this smoke wasn't going away. And with it being a surface fire, but also in the peat, all that area is just peat, it's burning so deep, we couldn't put it out just using beaters or water suppression. And I suppose that's one key message from this is, historically in the UK, we've managed these type of fires by getting fire engines and water to it. But the fires we're getting now are getting more severe, they're getting more frequent, and we've got to adapt and change. I know we manage those fires using fires, and that's why it's particularly interesting coming speaking to yourselves and linking in with POCOSTA and the graph to help us to develop our crews to get that knowledge and understanding. Okay. So again, we started one fire, two large wildfires came together, and for us that was unprecedented in size. That was the largest one in the UK this year. We actually had an incident emergency as well, which means we had a firefighter at risk. As the fire came over the hill, we had firefighters deployed, And when we did the roll call and evacuated them, due to the intensity of the fire, we had one person unaccounted for. A few things happened, which I have to talk about outside the presentation, and there was no injuries, but it was a time where we really considered that you've actually not only got people at risk, like Mark was saying, there's a big risk to firefighters when we deploy them in those circumstances and don't correctly identify that fire behaviour. And that's, again, another piece of work where we've got to work more closely with researchers and explain to researchers what we need to know so we can better protect our people and our communities. Sorry, that's gone the wrong way. Okay, that just shows the geographic location. So there's Winter Hill. The initial fire we had was on this side here, and it took that side of the hillside out. The one that came from the other side, which was Manchester, was down in this area, and that travelled all the way along that edge. And you saw the fire then just burning over and heading that way. And then obviously it came down to forestation. In these areas down here, where there are residential properties, we actually burned away, and we burned up to put a backburn in to manage it and protect them edges. And we did a similar task on the other side and around the transmitter. It looks like the fire burned towards the transmitter. It didn't. That was one of the other fire teams burning away and stopping it spreading to that area. Oh, sorry. Just one point here as well. Because of the peat, we work with partner agencies to put hessing sheeting over the peat to stop the erosion, and also put in the bales so that we allow the water quality to just filter itself out naturally. We've not seen any adverse effects that we can't manage with the water quality in those areas, but what we have experienced is because Walton is an old mill town, over years, hundreds of years, we've had loads of chimneys and mills putting out loads of smoke, and that's basically rested in the peat. So now as the peat's burning and releasing the carbon dioxide, but also those metals, we've done a lot of analysis with different universities, including Manchester and Lancashire, and we're analysing what that smoke plume actually consists of, which links again to those concerns of that vast amount of smoke going over our cities. You can see that's the footprint of the fire again, and you can see the towns and cities that are nearby and where it was spreading to. This area here was right in the middle of the moorland. It was an old monument site in Rivington, and it completely burned out all around it. We did manage to save that hillside and stop it getting to the monument, but after 30 days, there was always that concern because the peat was burning so deep and we couldn't get it out. If that flared up again, then it'd give that impression to the public and the media that we had another fire occurring and it was developing, and that had just raised tensions, and people would then start getting concerned again about the smoke and the fire behaviour. So it was really important we managed the forestation and the areas where we had those particularly historic values. Wildfire intensity and frequency, I spoke about it. That's, in the UK, they are getting more severe, they are getting more frequent. We've now got a capability where we have a number of advisors who will deploy UK-wide and give advice to the incident commander. Both myself and Steve Gibson, who's in the audience, are wildfire tech ads, and again, we'll go out and advise incident commanders on the tactics they can apply and other methods they might use to manage the fire. We adopt the LACES principles. That was really important. At one point, we had 250 people, not all fire and rescue service on the moors, so we had to make sure they were safe and they're operating, understood where the escape route were, where the safety zones were, because again, with that change in wind, extreme fire behaviour, it was really important we manage their safety as well as ourselves. We've looked at the fire operations group, which are partner agencies who come together to make sure that we adapt and we develop in terms of the learning that we can learn internationally rather than just in the UK. At the moment, we're looking at how we can improve our register of assets so we know where they are and how we can deploy more effectively using a national system. We did experience command fatigue. We had 35 commanders who operated consistently on a rolling process over those 41 days. People were very tired at times, and we're making command decisions whilst in that mode. So it's something, again, we need to look at a bit more closely. Bit of a screenshot on what we did, and I can share this with you again. 983 fire mobilisations, 41 days, 81 square kilometres in place, and 77 drone flights, as you saw the footage from that we have in place. Those are a number of agencies who helped us. Again, 250 people at any one time being on the moors. A lot of logistical information to manage and make sure people return home safe. And then just to finish off, we're still doing debriefs. At the moment, we've got 457 learning actions that we're looking at. We're still looking with the Home Office, our ministers, to make sure that we develop our process where we can. We're going to split all our learning into planning, response and business continuity. Internally in Lancashire, we're launching a new burn team earlier this year, and we're looking at improving our national response. And just to finish with, there are 2 pictures. That's when it came over, and we had a firefighter unaccounted for that we subsequently identified was safe, but nonetheless, that risk was there, and that's it on a normal day. Okay. Thank you.